I would advise to know your individual needs first and then find an organization that matches those needs. Look for an organization that values a work-life balance. Some may offer sick leave policies, flexible work schedules, counseling services, wellness programs, or even the ability to work from home. Pay is important, but don't only focus on pay. An organization that may not pay as much may offer better benefits or better work-life balance for you. Consider your total benefit package at each organization. Also, I would look for an organization that values diversity. Diversity is a strength for many organizations, and many find it a business imperative. Find an organization that matches your values. First, ask what's involved in the interview process. For example, you might want to ask questions about the physical location, or if a oral or written examination will be given, or if that will be timed. If you need a reasonable accommodation to successfully complete the interview, you have a right to request accommodations prior to the interview, and I would certainly give the interviewer time to make any accommodations. Keep in mind that if you request a reasonable accommodation and the need for that reasonable accommodation is not obvious, the employer may request medical documentation of your disability. Second, be aware if the employer could reasonably believe an applicant would not be able to perform a job function because of a known disability. They may ask the applicant to describe how they would perform the function. You may ask for a description of the job duties ahead of time to prepare yourself. And third, you deserve the same respect any student interviewing for the position deserves. Remember, interviewing is a chance to see not only if the organization is a good fit for you, but if you're a good fit for the organization. The interviewer should conduct the interview as they would with any other student. And you are protected by the Americans with Disabilities Act. The EEOC website has guidance for both interviewers and applicants on what types of questions are appropriate for interviews. And the website is www.eeoc.gov. First, as with a visible disability, if you need reasonable accommodations prior to the interview, inform the interviewer before the interview. As I stated earlier, if the need for an accommodation is not obvious, an employer may ask an applicant for reasonable documentation about his or her disability. If this is needed, be prepared with reasonable medical documentation from an appropriate professional. Second, if the disability is invisible, the employer cannot ask questions about the disability. However, if you voluntarily disclose information of a hidden disability, the employer may ask whether you do need reasonable accommodations and what type of accommodations you would need to perform the job functions. The same is true if you voluntarily disclose the need for reasonable accommodations. Under these circumstances, you should be prepared in knowing your reasonable accommodation needs. Third, whether you disclose your disability or not, remember you deserve the same respect as any student interviewing for the position. Again, the EEOC website has guidance on questions appropriate for the interview. Again, it is important to remember that you may be protected by the ADA, which prohibits employers from discriminating against you on the basis of a disability. It is a personal choice as to whether you choose to disclose your disability. Some universities have actually compiled considerations regarding when to disclose a disability, including if your disability is visible, are there safety reasons, and do you need accommodations. Actually, Mount Royal University offers a very comprehensive list in their guidelines for students with disabilities. The employer's choice as to when or even if an applicant discloses information about his or her disability is irrelevant. Again, the choice is entirely yours. But you might want to keep in mind that federal agencies and some private companies have special hiring programs for individuals with disabilities. So do your research to know your opportunities and take advantage of them if you wish to do so. As discussed previously, if you believe you would need reasonable accommodations to successfully complete a job interview, you should advise the employer as soon as possible prior to the interview. so that the employer would have the opportunity to prepare the accommodations. Because the reasonable accommodation process is individualized and interactive, there are really no set rules for requesting accommodations. If you believe that you need reasonable accommodations either before you begin your new job or the interview, it is important to let your employer know as soon as possible. Be clear and specific about what you need and why, and depending on the impairment being accommodated, the employer may have the right to request medical documentation, and you should be prepared to respond to that request. The most important tip is to be flexible as possible and keep lines of communication open with your employer. My advice would be the same for a student with a disability and a student who does not have a disability. Each individual, regardless of a disability or not, may need different benefits or different options with an employer. So find an employer whose missions and values, pay and benefits, and even work-life options meet your needs. Find an employer who will challenge you and develop your skills. You may not find that dream job right out of college, but look for one that may help you reach your goals. Once you're in a position, learn your job well and then develop your skills. There's no such thing as a career fairy that just plops on your desk and promotes you. You are responsible for your career development. So be flexible and do your task with a great attitude. A mentor can also be very valuable in your career development. Find a supervisor or a coworker whose hindsight can become your foresight. Following these ideas should help you reach your career goals.